Swapan Das Gupta, sir, never fails to say the right thing. He's fantastic in what he said, because I think that's most important. He touched the nub of it. So you've got facts from Dr. Jain. You've got the meta aspect from Swapanda. You've got AK-47 from Anand. Let me just connect all these, because I think that is the advantage of going at the fag end of it. What Swapanda refers to as irreverence is 100% correct, and it's irreverence that comes from being the 90s kid who saw your history being massacred in textbooks. Enough is enough effectively captures our sentiment. From there, you go and you try and arm yourself with knowledge so that you're in a position to disseminate it. Each time you try to present something about your history, the first thing that is missing is empathy, and the first thing that is present is judgment. I don't care for what others think, and this is the sentiment from the Hindu community. So Anand blames politicians, I am blaming the Hindu community. No other community, when presented with this kind of horrendous genocidal massacres that it has survived, reacts with this kind of judgment towards its own ancestors. They were defeated because they were cowards. They were defeated because they lacked Kshatriya spirit. They were defeated because they were divided. They were defeated because they were casteist. They were defeated because they were patriarchal. You can't find nothing positive about your people? What is the point of history if it doesn't take you closer to your people? What is the point of it? If history is meant to be another weapon or a stick that you use to settle scores on social media, burn it. It has no purpose according to me then. If the point is to settle, let's say, debates on social media or in friend circles or to massage your own bloated egos, what is the point of it? How are you remotely doing justice to all the efforts that Dr. Jain has just pointed out? If people shed their blood, their lives, their women, their children, their men, everybody under the sun to protect the Murti, and hundreds of years later, today we have a debate within the Hindu community whether we should take back all the occupied sites. Why should you read history if this is your reaction after becoming aware of the kind of the trouble that we've gone through to recover one place? So what is this about? So is history your weapon to beat the Congress? Is history your weapon to beat the left? Is history a weapon to beat your friend who is a leftist or a Marxist or a communist? Is history a weapon to go closer to your ancestors? Where is the sense of empathy in trying to understand your own people? That is the curse of Indian historiography today. Our reasons for wanting to set right history are fundamentally wrong. Why do you want it in the first place? The opening video that was going on when we sat here, I'm sorry to say this, I mean no disrespect, I found it very difficult to sit through that video. To reduce the sacrifices and the troubles of your ancestors to mere cliches and stereotypes is not done. And the worst part of our history is that it is not in the past, it is a continuing present. The challenges of the past continue today. Perhaps if you were a geographically isolated, let's say, region, so to speak, you can still afford to look at your past with a sense of, let's say, archival sense, in the sense you can look at it, hua tha. So I need to understand in an academic sense, kya hua tha. Everything that has happened is repeating itself. Kal chakra phir se wahin pe aake khada ho chuka hai. The 1920s, according to me, are no different from the 2020s. The only question that I've been constantly asking myself is, at least at this juncture, will we take the right decision instead of making the mistakes of the past? And therefore, when I look at history, I'm blunt about the fact that I'm looking at weaponizing the Hindu mind. I'm absolutely blunt about it from a societal perspective. If you still don't know how to look out for your interest, you deserve everything that you have suffered and everything that will come your way if you don't learn from it. Somebody has to say this. The politician will not. Somebody else has to say this. I'm the last person as a lawyer to discount the importance of power. I'm the last person to say in the larger picture, in the big picture, in the calculus, it doesn't matter. 100% it matters. This congregation has been made possible because of the change from 2014. Let's admit that. But 2014 was made possible because there was a society yearning. Let's admit that as well. The verdict of 9th of November 2019 was made possible because of 496 years of Jaddojahed. By generations of people who did not know whether they'd be remembered or not. Lawyers will get their visibility. Judges will get their visibility. Who is going to talk of the Nihangs and everybody else who fought for 400 years? There was a time when both these communities were fighting together to protect the Kshetra. Can you say the same thing about Punjab of today? Too uncomfortable a fact? Therefore, history is important for Bharat. I don't care whether history is important for anybody else or not. It's extremely crucial for Bharat. Now let me just share a few points based on what Swapanda pointed out. When he quotes Dalrymple's position on Ashoka being half Greek, why is it that there is this dying need on the part of this white man to look for everything that is white, even in Bharat's history? So there's a fantastic book of Thomas Troutman. You should read it. It's a series of books that he's written on the Aryan invasion theory, its origins. You will never be able to understand the caste debate without understanding the history of Aryan invasion theory and vice versa. Remember that. When you're reading Indian history, that is the thumb rule. So when these people come to this country, they're like, we have colonized so many places. It's like the juggernaut of the Australian team finally being defeated in Calcutta. It comes here, and then it's asked, these guys are boggled. This fellow is black. He is an idol worshipper. He's a polytheist. And still he is culturally and spiritually superior to us. That question is repeated over and over again in their personal correspondence because they're hoping to find a fully inferior civilization, which is a defeated civilization. But a defeated civilization is not necessarily an inferior civilization. That is the realization that leads them to the point. If they are superior in some way, then that superiority must be traced back to us. And hence starts the reverse engineering of Indian history by bringing in the Aryan angle that everything that white stands for victory, and therefore at some point, some fellow who was white would have come here, inseminated the blood here, and from there, these guys must have become victorious. That is this dying need. So around that period, they had something called the Tree of Civilization. The Tree of Civilization is the mapping of different civilization based on their superiority and inferiority, which they had mapped for themselves, and who you think would be at the top of that particular pecking order. It has to be the white man. How is this entire thing worked out? Language becomes the basis for understanding somebody's race. Their inability to wrap their heads around Sanskrit leads to the conclusion that Sanskrit must necessarily be a white contribution and therefore an Aryan contribution. And from there starts the analysis of the Aryan invasion theory. We continue to spew this nonsense in today's Dravidinist politics in the South. This is literally, pun intended, the Bible of the Dravidinists. Because this is what they swear by when they push their agenda of Brahmin versus non-Brahmin, therefore Aryan versus non-Aryan and Dravidian, therefore North Indian versus South Indian. I say this, I've said this before. Separatism of Kashmir at least openly wore the Kalashnikov on its sleeve. Dravidianism uses social justice as a weapon, which is much more dangerous than AK-47, not because I have a problem with the concept of social justice, but anti-Hinduism and anti-Bharatiism is packaged in the fantastic label of social justice warriorship. So my suggestion would be, try to use these platforms as moments of creating more actual, practical, weaponizable scholarship, as opposed to creating cults around anybody. If you're truly a land of seekers, then seek the truth and have the guts to present the truth regardless of who is in power. If you choose not to do that, to quote the adage of the colonizer, you're being penny wise and pound foolish. And in the long run, forget the long run. In the next 25-year cycle, which is supposed to be the touted Amrit Kal, you will see everything that transpired in 1924 leading to 1947 repeat itself. I have no interest in burnishing my secular credentials under any circumstances, regardless of who is in the audience. I'm more interested in securing the safety of my people, and my people are the Hindus, period. If you don't operate with that sense of realism, बेचते रहिए सर्वधर्म.
Now, finally, I want to come to Sai Deepak, and I want to change the topic a little, which you haven't touched, maybe because of the paucity of time.
Is that the division within the Hindu community is there with respect to this temple exposes the fundamental Christianization of the Hindu mind, wherein it fails to wrap its head around the diversity of energy spaces within Hindu dharma. That's one. But you see, the one important conversation in this entire thing that needs to be bridged and addressed, and here I'll play the peacemaker between Swapanda and Anand, is just this. The fact of the matter is, fortunately or unfortunately, there is only one political vikalp as far as Hindu interest is concerned as on date. From a larger Hindu perspective, is that good for us? According to me, no. But there is a difference between what should be and what is. The situation today is this. These are the cards on the table at this point. Now, how do you then make sure that your causes become attractive to the politician? I will proceed on the basis that you have a certain conscientious political establishment in power, but it is equally important for them to cater to incentives, because at the end of the day, politics functions on incentives. Now, therefore, there is a part, let's say, idealism, and then there is a part which is, let's say, purely political in nature. The efforts that people like me, and I don't wish to include me in this, there are others who are full-timers in this, I'm a 10% part-timer in that sense, is that we are trying to create a critical mass of opinion that translates to two things, one of two things. Pressure which results in incentive, or pressure that results in disincentive. It's not rocket science, there's nothing that is close to my chest that I have to hide. This is exactly what's been going on. The hope is that with each passing term, apart from economics, we also address civilizational legacy issues, because that's equally important for political survival, because when I speak of illegal migration, it's not an academic issue. It affects everybody who's in power, and it affects Hindu existence. When I speak of alienation of Hindu land, it affects everybody, because then it is encroachment of our spaces. There's a reason why Ujjain is surrounded by everybody else. Kashi is surrounded by everybody else. Then you go to Kalikambal temple in Chennai, it's surrounded by everybody else except Hindus. Okay? So what I'm trying to say is that there is a very clear intersection or overlap where the political interest meets the societal interest. It would help if both of them speak with each other, listen to each other, if there is a feedback loop and there is a handshake between both sides. Because as I said, I'm a realist. Power is important, but power for its own sake without delivery is equally not, it's not desirable, because then the question is, there was a purpose for which these votes have come your way, so perhaps you should push the envelope as much as possible. I think it's a setting of expectation more than a grievance. That's